And I had this like revelation of I was putting all my eggs to one basket in the sense that like I was not financially stable. And I think as just I'm getting older, priorities shift, and I still audition every week, multiple times, but I wanted to live kind of like in a stable manner because that was what was really important to me, to have like a lifestyle that I enjoyed. And while that may encompass a lot of auditioning, rejections, the hustle, burnout, I wanted to feel like, okay, like I'm at a point where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, like getting rid of that starving artist mentality.
Hey, welcome to Theater Life Uncensored, where we peel back the curtain and reveal to you what's really working in today's theater industry for artists just like you. That means you get to hear and learn how to surpass your career goals sooner and enjoy an easier, more peaceful life along the way. I'm your host, Jim Cooney, a New York City-based director-choreographer, and I'm also the founder of Amplified Artists, a membership community for theater professionals, from performers to producers and everyone in between, helping you create a career and life you love. I'm really excited to share this interview with you today with Viveca Chow. Now, Viveca is an accomplished performer. You may have seen her on Broadway or Netflix, but that is not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is how she gets paid for her social media and how you can too, even with a tiny following. And you'll hear how her adding in this additional revenue stream affected her life in major ways. Now, if you're someone who hates social media, I will tell you right now, Viveca also quit social media for a while. She even deleted her accounts. But fast forward to a few years later, and now she's an influencer with a massive following. So how did she go from deleting her accounts to now loving social media? Well, that's what this interview is all about. Plus, she's going to give you tips on what you can do and how you can get paid for it no matter what size following you have. I mean, if you're going to be on social media anyway, you might as well get paid for it, right? Plus, this is an easy way to earn cash because it's something you can do from anywhere and on your own schedule, which means it's a great side gig for theater artists. Before we dive into all that, be sure to hit the subscribe and get notified button so you don't miss a single episode. And I also have a free gift for you. One of the things I get asked the most about is branding. How do I find my brand? How do I make my brand stand out? How do I make it different? So I've put together a free worksheet and guide for you that's a 3-part branding process that's going to walk you through the whole thing. And you can download it for free on my website, jimcooney.me/branding. And I'll link to that in the video description below too. So now let's get on to this interview with Viveca Chow about getting paid for your social media. Oh, I should also mention Viveca is originally from Hong Kong, and we talk about artist visas in this episode. So if you're someone who's living overseas and wanting to work in the US, you're going to get some great info. All right, on to the interview. All right, hello, Viveca. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. It's been awesome watching you because I've known you for, what was it, like 2015 is when I met you. It's like watching you as a student at Point Park when I was teaching there and helping with your senior showcase, the industry showcase, and then working with you on your visa to get, here working in America, and then watching you on Broadway, and now what you're doing with your social media. It's like this awesome trajectory to see you. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that, and I'm proud of you and so happy for you and like all the good things. You've deserved it. So thanks for being here and talking about it. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. And you're part of my journey. You're like a huge part. So thank you.
Oh, well, thanks. For people who don't know you, I like to just start with how would you describe yourself when you're meeting someone new, like as an artist and who you are today?
Yeah. Well, hello. My name is Viveca Chow. I am originally from Hong Kong, born and raised. And I came to the States when I was 18 to study musical theater. I had big dreams of being on Broadway. And that kind of was accomplished in a really unexpected manner almost. And I got to experience that, right out of college, which was such a blessing. And now I am a full-time actor, but also a full-time content creator / influencer.
That's awesome. What made you decide to start doing the social media influencing in conjunction with your performing?
I've always really loved social media because I think it's such a good tool to express myself. First of all, that was kind of why I started Instagram in the first place, was it was like my visual diary. I love aesthetics. Aesthetics really made me happy. It's kind of like my source of joy almost, like being able to curate something. And social media to me is also, I get to be a photographer for myself. I get to model in front of the camera. I get to edit and I get to connect. So those are kind of like my four pillars of why I love social media.
Hmm.
And so Instagram was always a thing. And then, but I never thought about monetizing it. I guess that was the difference. It was really for my mental health. Like I started a blog at some point, which I've kind of stopped now because it kind of got a little too much for me. But I started social media on Instagram. And then the pandemic came, and I think I was in a lot of the same boat as a lot of artists, just kind of feeling lost. And I had this like revelation of I I was putting all my eggs to one basket in the sense that like I was not financially stable. And I think as just I'm getting older, priorities shift, and I still audition every week, multiple times, but I wanted to live kind of like in a stable manner because that was what was really important to me, to have like a lifestyle that I enjoyed. And while that may encompass a lot of auditioning, rejections, the hustle, burnout, I wanted to feel like, okay, like I'm at a point where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, like getting rid of that starving artist mentality. So the pandemic happened and I started TikTok, like everyone. And I didn't know. I felt iffy. I actually started a TikTok like at the beginning of the pandemic and I didn't know what I wanted to post. So I posted a lot of Broadway and my experience of being in the Saigon, the revival. And then quickly I was like, I'm not even on Broadway anymore. Like, while I'm happy to share, like I am out of content because social media to me is like kind of like, it works if it's effortless. It works if it's part of your lifestyle and you don't have to like reach for it. Regardless, like let's say if you're a huge coffee drinker, if you're going to make that amazing cup of latte every day, like you might as well film it, so you're not kind of like going out of your way to do that because that leads to burnout. So
Right.
anyway, so that was kind of like the Broadway thing for me. And I was like, I have nuggets of wisdom to share, but then that's not my lifestyle now. So like I don't know what else to talk about. So I tried to
Hmm.
like switch to my dog because I think my dog's the cutest thing in the world. That didn't work out. I was like, well, I think he's cute. So I had 5,000 followers and I quit. I deleted my account. I completely deleted my account. I was like, whatever. Literally, maybe a year later, I started it again. I was like, why not? Who cares? Whatever. First video that went viral was like maybe a week after I rejoined, and it was of my hairstylist in Chinatown who charges $18 to $32 for a haircut. That went viral, and I had this like epiphany. I was like, I know what I want to do, just like tying to my mission of wanting to empower and heal the world through my creativity. I was like, I want to empower these small businesses in New York City, especially in Chinatown, that connects to like my roots because I'm always homesick. I haven't been home in like maybe almost 4 years now.
Hmm.
And, being able to be that vessel for them, because they don't have the budget for social media. They don't have the connections, for Instagram or, the skills, and they're charging like $5 a meal. It's like, it almost is so heartbreaking to me, to know that they work so freaking hard and their audience is limited to the neighborhood.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to do, and that's how it started. And now I still do that, and that doesn't pay me anything, but it makes my heart happy, and that has led to opportunities where I have become like a full-time content creator where I monetize my platform.
Right. There's so many good things to go back to. So, um, like you talked about your mission of empowering the world through your creativity and through your art, and that's something that we talk about in Amplified Artists, of like your all the ways that you are monetizing or making money, or um, the gigs you're doing, whatever it is, aligning those to like your broader mission and who you are as an artist or like as a creative human being, like you were saying, because all that energy you're spending is going to keep funneling you down that same lane and getting you closer and closer to like your creative fulfillment, and making your heart happy and making your wallet happy and all those things, versus like trying to do these like random gigs that like, oh, maybe I'll bartend here, maybe I'll babysit here, and do these things that are just quote unquote survival jobs that are really just taking your time away. Yes, you are getting paid, but that's literally the only thing you're getting out of that, unless you're, like there are examples of people babysitting for like Broadway celebrities, and that's helping them get on Broadway. Like there's examples where you can do those jobs in a way that you're purposely aligning them, like what we're talking about. But this is like, for me, especially if you're a performer, going from performing on stage to social media, whether it's during the pandemic or not, like that to me is like such an easy like dot to connect, because you're really doing the same thing. Like you said, you're creating content, you're deciding on the music, you're deciding what to wear, like what the story is you're going to tell. Like you are storytelling.
Storyteller.
It's like making your coffee in the morning, like you said. um I think for like people who are like myself, like directors or choreographers, for people who are composers, like it's a harder jump to make because we're not used to performing. But for performers, to me, it seems like it's such an easy, adding social media in and monetizing it is such an easy like extra thing. And it's also, like you said, your one of your pillars was to connect. And I think that's what people forget about, that social media is not just putting content out there, it's connecting to an audience. And right now, what I hear so many people saying is like, because everything is digital, it's really hard for me to create these offline relationships and to connect. But I'm like, hello, that is what social media is. Like, you are connecting. You can have conversation through that. Yes, it's digital, but like, it's not just about putting this wall up of perfect content. It's about really being yourself and show, like you said, like you're talking about these restaurants and these salons, and it's not even about you, but we're getting to see you because we're seeing the world through your lens, and then that sparks these conversations. So what would you say to someone who is afraid to, I mean, you already said some good things about like, don't try to create the content, just use what's already in your life. I think
Mm.
that's like such an awesome tip. But like people who are like really afraid to put themselves out there, do you have any like words of wisdom or things that could help them?
There's so many different types of content. I mean, there's nonverbal, you don't even have to talk. You don't even have to be on camera. You can just have text. So find what like works for you and what you're comfortable with, because at the end of the day, like it is such a magical world out there that like if you're the thing is like if you're consuming content anyway, like and you're kind of like interested in creating, it really is such a awesome tool. And I think like as performers, as artists, we're so creative anyway that like I personally prefer to spend my time being creative than
Mhm.
babysitting. That was my job before, and it didn't give me any value or fulfillment at all, except the money. And the
Mhm.
thing is like, because when you monetize your passions, you have to be kind of like strategic with it. Like, not everything has to be about money. So I think like for me, it's knowing what I'm able and willing to do for completely free, because like it makes my heart happy, and also like what pays the bills, but also like ties into my mission. So um just start, like start with like different, play around with different types of content, nonverbal, verbal. You don't even have to vlog. And I think like we all think about like, oh, you have to be in front of the camera to be able to like grow. That's not true at all. There's literally this creator I love. Her name is like Heart Defender or Defensive or something. And she just does unboxing videos because she loves shopping. That's
Mhm.
it. So it's like, what makes you happy? What do you kind of like gravitate towards too? Or even like, what do people text you and ask you questions about?
Mhm.
Because that is your value right there. And it's like, if you're willing to share, there will be people that latch on to that kind of
Right.
content. Yeah.
And I think there's also an audience for everyone, and an audience for everything too. And I think that's what people forget about. It's like, you're not the only person on the planet who's interested in this. You know what I mean? Like, there's many other people. And I think that, again, going back to this, like aligning everything into one lane, people feel like, well, but it's not my performing, it's not my choreography, whatever it is. Like, it's these other interests. Like mine's travel. Like, I love to post about traveling. That has nothing to do with being an artist, right? But it's something that makes my heart happy, and it's made me connect to a bunch of other people that way. And people bringing me over to their countries to
Yeah.
choreograph or to teach or whatever it is, because they see that I'm someone who loves to go around the world. So like, it does connect in these other ways you may not know. But even if it is a completely separate audience, the fact is, like, if you're getting all this traffic on your social media, it's going to make your profile more popular across the board. So when casting directors are searching for you or other people are searching for you, and they also see that you have this giant following, and they can look through your content and like learn about you as a person, instead of just, I mean, I just was talking to a casting director this week about, like, it's not helpful to him when he goes and all he sees is videos of you singing, like not you yourself, but like anyone, right? He wants to see like who you are, like, and like he's trying to find these like clips that like actually show the person, not the performer. And I think that that's what people forget, is like your Instagram and whatever, your TikTok shouldn't just be you performing. Like, there's so much more to you as a human than that.
Yeah, because we're human first, artist second. Like at the end of the day, when you look in the mirror, like you're not acting before you go to bed. Like you're
Right.
just existing, you're being a human. So the selling point is right there. Like, you as yourself in the most like raw, vulnerable state. What are you willing to share? What's like, what makes you happy that in turn will make someone else happy, you know?
Yeah. And I think too, it's like we talk about this again in Amplified Artists, where like the human first, artist second thing, but also it's so intertwined where who you are as an artist affects who you are as a human, and who you are as a human
Vice
affects who
versa.
you are as an artist. So like if you're just like shutting off or compartmentalizing a whole part of your life, you're it's not going to make you very happy. You know what I mean? Like you have to
Right.
experience your full life.
Right.
Um, what about, so, I think people would look at an account like yours and be like, oh, she has, thousands and thousands of followers. But there are micro influencers, there's nano influencers who are even smaller than micro influencers. Like literally, it seems like any size audience these days, you can work with a brand. Maybe you're not going to be working with Nike if you only have 500 followers, right? But there are small brands that don't have budgets to pay what Nike pays, so they need people on smaller levels. So to me, it seems like whatever follower account you have, if you want to start monetizing it, there would be ways to do that. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. So I have around what 61K on TikTok and 14K on Instagram, and I'm still considered a micro influencer. So like once you hit 100, I think that's when like people consider you as like a mid tier, mid size, whatever. Because but at the end of the day, it's like yes, followers matter for brand deals, but it's really about your content. I just did a Samsung campaign at the follow.
Awesome.
I was like a 50K, so like 10K before now. And the thing is, like, I was chatting to the girl who was like scouting the influencers, and she was like, I'm just looking for people who are fun and create like good quality content. Like the numbers like don't really matter that much if your content quality is high, because a lot of the times, like, yes, you're posting onto your platform, but they're also like buying rights and usage rights for a certain number of months. They're maybe interested in exclusivity, so it's like, how are they repurposing your content for their brand's influence? And that is like another world of its own. And that kind of branches into something called UGC content, which you don't even need followers to do. You just have to be good at like adapting a script, being natural in camera, talking to the camera, um, about a product. And that's how I started like my content creation journey before TikTok. Is like I worked for an app platform called Billow, and they basically are like an agency that connects you to like really small businesses that need these ad videos, and it's
Mhm.
like an affordable service, so you're not really getting paid that much, but it kind of like, it's better than serving at a restaurant. In my opinion, it's better babysitting because you're still earning double the amount of like minimum wage. So, and
Right.
it takes half the time to do it. So that was really what attracted me in the first place. But then eventually, as I started to grow, like, it didn't serve me in like just like timing and monetary, like the it was like very stagnant in terms of pay, so I kind of like branched
Mhm.
away from that for a while. But like that is a really good place to start, especially if you're kind of like dabbling into
Yeah.
content creation, just like hitting a brand up, or even like creating the video first. Like, I don't know, like, I love this blanket, create the video and then send it to the brand, post on social media, tag them being like, hey, I created this video for you, you interested in like
Mhm.
buying rights to it? There's so many ways to go around it. Like, just, I guess, like, don't be scared to be like creative. There's no like one size fits all like formula.
Right.
Everyone's journey is different, even like acting, performing, like how I get on Broadway is different to how someone else gets on Broadway. So yeah, same thing
Yeah.
applies here.
Well, I think too, people are so used to being on camera now, and especially if you're a performer, you're doing all these self tapes. So whether you're doing a script or you're going to be selling the product, it's like you have the setup already. You probably have your camera, your lighting, the places you like to film. Like you're already ready to go. And even for people who aren't performers, it's like we're still on camera so much nowadays. So like, I think if you're in the performing world at all, even if you aren't a performer, you are used to this kind of like, setup and interaction. And you're also, if you are a director, you're in front leading a whole room of people. So you're not afraid to like stand up there and talk in front of people, right? So
Right.
doing the same thing on social media. And I love that you also said too that, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I love your blanket. I want to make a video about this. This is something like I beat my drum about this so much to people, is like they wait for opportunities to come to them instead of just creating an opportunity on their own. If they have an idea, it's like go pursue it instead of like hoping that someone's going to come to you and ask you to do XYZ. So that's really great that you're saying that here, because it again, it's just like, doesn't matter if it's theater or not. If there's something you want to do, you can find out a way to do it. And like, it starts with an ask, like you said, just reach out to them. The worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say no. Literally, that's the worst thing that's going to happen. And then you're just going to go on with your day. You're no worse off before they said no than you were, because like you weren't doing it before. They say no, you're not going to do it after. Like, you're literally at the same level, right? But if they
Right.
say yes, then it can only go up from there. So
Exactly. And it's like basically commercial work, really. Truly. Like that's how I think of it, we're so natural in front of a camera that we're not like, this is the product,
right, yeah,
like I love it so much, because sometimes they do provide scripts and there are people who are like, oh, she's reading, like she's
yeah,
reading. So it's important that we're able to bring our own like uniqueness and kind of energy to it too. Yeah.
yeah. So if someone did have a small audience of like just 500 or 1,000 people, they're just starting out with social media. Uh, Besides ask, like, what you said, like sending the content to them, are there any other things that they could do? Like, is there places they should go, resources to look at
Yeah.
that would help them?
Yeah, so much. So I would say just like platform wise, utilize Reels if you're on Instagram. Be on TikTok if you want to, if you can, because TikTok is a little bit draining and addictive. And like, you're like, oh, I've been on TikTok for 5 hours now. Okay. But anyway, yeah, utilize Reels because Instagram is pushing Reels right now. And you just honestly have to post a bunch and then kind of like analyze like what gets the most views, what gets the most saves, shares, comments, likes, kind of like figuring out like what works for you, because like I'm still figuring it out myself. Like I'm not very like good at Reels, to be honest, but it's also like it's a learning process because everything is so new, it's thrown at you. But the best resource honestly I think is a full-time influencer. It's like a podcast. It's created by Tina Lee. She is a very generous influencer that shares like these insane like tidbits of information. I actually know her because I'm friends with her assistant Lucy, who's also went from 2000 at the beginning of the year to 32K
Wow.
just through Reels. So this happens a lot, and it's like everyone's blowing up because of Reels. So Reels is important. And she also like does like this like Reels rocket ship, I think. And it's like a program where she teaches you like how to create viral Reels. And it's
Hmm.
like proven to kind of like been pretty consistent with her clients to work. So like things like that, there's so many free resources out there
Right.
that even like TikTok, so many social media managers on there, like just spewing out free information for you to consume.
Mhm.
So be on TikTok. I love Jules. I think her handle is it's me, Jules or something. I love her content. She's also based in New York. Um, yeah, so those are the main things. Yeah, that I would say
Yeah.
like resources and stuff. And like finding your niche, but like what is your niche? Like you're your niche.
Hmm.
Like don't
Right.
stress over that because I think that's kind of like a controversial
Yeah.
like topic on social media, which is so funny. Everyone's like,
Right.
no, you have to find your niche. Other people like no one cares. So
Yeah.
just like lead with the fact like you are your niche. Like what do you like? Yeah, you can be multifaceted. Um, and it's kind of like the other day I was like looking at a post and someone was like, when you're like narrowing down your niche, like what are your interests? So if your interests are like shopping, luxury, uh, I don't know, whatever, you can like niche down to like a specific like, like aesthetic living in New York City. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's
Hmm.
like it still ties in everything together, but you have like one broad stroke of
Yeah.
what the niche is.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like how we talk about your brand is you. Like, you don't create the separate brand. Like,
Mhm.
you are already the brand. Like however you are in person, then your reputation and your energy, like that is your brand. That's how people are going to talk about you. So it's the same with this. And I think that like you could use niche in a way that would like constrict you in a bad way, or you can use it as parameters in a good way, right? So like, if you know, like, okay, I have these like 3 content pillars or these 5 content pillars, you can kind of rotate through them and like, okay, well, I've done a lot of about coffee right now, so let me go do some more on travel, let me go do some on blankets or unboxing or these other examples you're giving. So it's like they're helpful guidelines for you versus like, well, I can only post about these three things because that's what I decided my niche is and no one cares about anything else. Like that's when like it gets kind of boring and stale because it's like just the same thing over and over and over again. So I like that you said that. Um, and I think too, with like going back to like what you said with testing, I know for myself, it's like you have to test like, okay, what time of day, and like how long should the caption be, and like how much text should be on this. Like, there's so many things that like test other than just the content itself that it really does take a lot of time. And sometimes you just can't figure out. Like, I'll post on the same day. It seems like the exact same kind of reel, or not the same day, but like the same time during a week or whatever. And like one will get 7,000 views and then one will get 500 views. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I literally don't, I have the same background, like the same amount of text. Like, and so like sometimes it is random and the algorithm just picks things. And if someone happens to comment or something sooner than someone else comments on another one, that can affect it. So I think like patience is something I would tell people is like, it's going to take a lot of content and a lot of time before you start to see trends in certain ways. Um, to help you like know like how to keep growing that even better.
Totally. And I think like being kind of like self-aware about your own content and like kind of like noting what other reels are similar to you, like why are they going viral, like kind of
Oh, that's
analyzing and
good. Yeah.
breaking down what are they saying here, for example, uh I don't know, like I guess like restructuring their first 3 seconds to fit your first 3 seconds. So like the other day I was like scrolling on TikTok and there was a super viral video and it was just like something that feels illegal for you to know or something.
Hmm.
So like today I just made a video and I was like cute New York City date idea that no one knows about.
Hmm.
Like little things like that, kind of like, oh, like that is really captivating and I am still watching the video. So the first 3 seconds must have worked. So kind of like taking notes as you go along of like other people's hooks and stuff, because hooks are
Hmm.
very important. That would
Yeah.
be my like main like
Yeah.
next big like tip. Yeah.
Well, and I think the first word of social media is social, and like it's not just about posting content; it's also interacting. And if you are interacting with other people's content, that's going to inspire them to come back and interact with you. So it's like you have to be giving just as much as receiving. And I think also like for people who don't like posting a lot, like I'm one of those people. Like I'm good with like 3 to 4 times a week, and like I have so many other things I want to focus on. But I can be on social media every day interacting with other people on the days that I'm not posting and still showing up on the platform in those ways and building relationships in those ways. And honestly, I feel like that goes a little bit further even than me having to post the content, because that's when like the real conversations, it's much easier to start conversation on someone else's post than it is to get people to like engage with you and then you have
Yeah.
conversation on your post.
Right.
Yeah. Um, all right. Well, switching gears, I want to go back to like you were talking about, getting to be on Broadway, and we talked a little bit about your visa. But I work with a lot of international people, and this is something that comes up a lot of like, well, how do I, work in New York City or on Broadway if I want to work on there? And if I get the O1 visa, then you're not supposed to be working on Broadway. You're not quote unquote allowed. But yet I have friends who are on the O1 visa who are on Broadway, so it does happen. It's just you have to get sponsored by them and things of that nature. But I know you did the EB1 visa, right?
So I graduated and I was on the OPT. So
Okay.
that's kind of like the free year they give you. Like thanks for paying
Yeah.
your tuition in the United States. Great. Okay. So the OPT is amazing because it basically works like a work authorization, and there are basically no stipulations or restrictions. I booked Miss Saigon during that year, which I was
Oh,
really
okay.
lucky. And the thing is like it's not that you're not allowed to like be on Broadway, quote unquote. It's just more like equity is kind of like a
Right.
hard ass on it. Like, excuse my language. And it's just a lot of like miscommunication and misunderstanding with what the O1 visa actually is. Like a work visa is a work visa, like it's not like something you can pick and choose, but this is unfortunately what happens. But I will say last year, Jessica Wu, who was my castmate in the Saigon, she changed things around and now you can work on Broadway on an O1. And
Oh,
that's just,
great.
yeah, so that's something that has recently changed. Uh
Oh, that's good to know.
yeah, so the O1B is basically a artist of extraordinary
Yeah.
ability, and I'm sponsored through my agency, and I will say that being sponsored through like an agent or your agent is actually quite important, because I'll get into this a little bit later. Uh because I mean not just like the approval rates, but like if they are your actual agent. This kind of like branches out into TV and film world because a lot of the times they like reject you if you're not like signed with an actual agent because they're like scared of, I don't know what they're scared of, but that's just like kind of a loophole that I've learned is like, if you can get an agency to sponsor you, do that instead. And then that allows you to also work multiple different opportunities. You're not tied to one thing as opposed to like, I mean, if like Broadway's willing to sponsor you, please, of course, do that,
Yeah.
but I would also kind of like bring up the idea of like, hey, I'm with this agency. Like, if we put you on the itinerary, we can also put so many other things on the itinerary. Like, it allows me to work different things as
Mm-hmm.
well. So that's my first tip. Um, the only thing is like with the ON visa, it's really hard to work network TV. So last year during the pandemic, I booked literally two big things on like the same day. Like I booked a Shonda Rhimes, I booked Inventing Anna.
Oh, awesome.
And then I also booked this like, oh my god, I forgot what it's called now. Alec Baldwin's in it, and basically they were co-star roles, right? But to me, it's like a stepping stone in my film and TV trajectory. And I
Mm-hmm.
was so excited, and then the next thing you know, like they were like, "Oh, she's on an O1, like we're pulling the offer," and it like
Wow.
it's just like so heartbreaking. So do
Yeah.
be prepared for those things to happen. um but like my experience of working on Broadway is like gonna be different now that that equity role has changed. But basically, like, really quick story is that I applied for the EB1 because they told me I would have to have a green card to work on Broadway. But by the time the show closed, like I still didn't receive my green card approval or denial.
Wow.
So it's like I was working on this like work authorization again, like that's kind of like the easiest way to work. But um it was unnecessary, because I didn't need to file my green card, nor was I ready for it. So if anyone tells you that you need a green card to work, like, don't listen to them. Because the worst thing that can happen, and it sucks, is that you don't do the job. That's it. But with that being said, there are like 200,000 other jobs waiting for you
Mm-hmm.
to work. So it sucks in the moment, but just know that you're booking now. So why, you're going to book later.
Right.
So, yeah, so just like don't listen to anyone if they're like you have to get your green card, because the green card is like around 15K in lawyer fees
Yeah.
uh and application fees. But um yeah, but now that the rules have changed, it's going to be different moving forward. But
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, I guess like just be like aware of like what people are telling you. Like, don't
Yeah.
believe everything you hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the again, like going back to relationships, I feel like this business is all about relationships. This is another example because to get these visas, you need to have people writing letters on your behalf and people agreeing to sponsor you, and you need to have
Yeah.
these relationships, right? And so, like, I wrote a letter for you because you were a student of mine. So, like, we developed these relationships with people, and what I think people have the hardest time like or trying to figure out is like, well, how do I develop these relationships with people, especially if I can't, afford to go to a school in America like you did, or if I can't afford to go to a program like we have at Broadway Dance Center, where we have the international program where people can get sponsored on the M1 visa and they can build relationships while they're here. And then, those choreographers can write letters for them. Um, but I think that, well, I'll get your thoughts on that first, then I'll tell you my thoughts.
Sure. What are my thoughts?
Yeah. So
Or
like
what?
if you weren't coming to school here and you're an international student, you wanted to work here in America, and especially if you wanted to work on Broadway, like how would you develop those relationships? Like, are there any other ways that you could do that?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, social media, like going back to social media, right? But the thing is, like, I think it kind of like personally, I think there's a fine line because for me, it's like I am so grateful like that everyone is so like willing to help, but sometimes it feels like awkward or like maybe like imposter syndrome or something. Like you just feel bad that you're asking for these favors. Like you know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
think like just like approaching it in a like a mutually beneficial way, but also like actually fostering the relationship and not just
Right.
like, hey, this is what you can do for me, and then like
Right.
that's it. Like I still constantly check in with like everyone who's like wrote me a letter and like being like, hey, how are you? And sometimes they don't reply because they're busy, but like at the end of the day, it's like I care about, like I want them to know that I care about them as a person. And I think that's like when I first graduated, that was something I didn't really understand, because I was like, I need to stay in this country. Like, how am I going to stay in this country? Everything was so like oriented around my visa. And it was like, oh, should I take this job? Oh yeah, it's going to be good for my visa. Should I da, 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 da? You know, I was so scared to say no to everything, because I was like, it's going to look good on my visa, da, 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 da. And like, don't get me wrong, like that's important, but like if you're in your home country, there's so many other things you can also do to build that portfolio. And like, you can also ask the people from your own home country to write you letters. It's not just people in the US, it's worldwide, because you know, like you want to work in the US, but obviously it's understandable that you're not going to have the connections yet if you're not in the country. So do the best you can, like in your home country, like whatever that means, like experience. And if you're good at other things, like creative things, like do that too, because a lot of people are like performers and photographers. They can file simultaneously. And the thing is, like, if you have a strong photographer like portfolio, that's going to pull your application up. You know,
Yes.
so it's like, again, so many different ways to achieve the same end result.
Yeah. I mean, so many things. Like every time you say something, I'm like, I need to be taking notes because like there's so many things I want to go back to. um, yeah, I think. Well, one thing I was going to say too is I think that besides the social media stuff, there are now more and more ways for people to train without coming to America. And this is like one of the reasons why I wanted to start Amplified Artists too, is that you don't need to live in New York to have access to these people, to the guests that we bring in, even like people within, like you're a member, so people connecting with you, and then you can write, you have Broadway credits, you have Netflix credits, you're this influencer, you have all these things that like you would write a persuasive letter for someone. So I think that's like being creative, like you said, like in using these different ways to build the relationship, but it has to be about them and not just about you. And you know, hit on that yourself, because someone will, they'll gladly out of their heart like write you a letter, but it's like they have to really believe in you and believe in like what you have to offer so they can write a letter that's going to be worthwhile. But also, like, if they're putting their name on it, they don't want to lie to the US government of like, oh, this person's extraordinary, and like, oh, I really don't think that, but they asked me. Like, people aren't going to write those letters unless they really are wanting you to succeed. And like the way that you do that is by having a relationship with that person. Like, that's how they get invested in you and they want to see you grow. And I think like it's good that you said and that you recognize that you first, everything was about your visa, because you did, once you weren't like this in university, but once you got to New York, I did feel this like energy from you of like you were making or breaking your career, and your mind was like making or breaking on the visa. And then years later now you've totally relaxed, and that's not how you operate at all. But it
Growth.
yeah, growth, yes. But like you have to be careful of that. And I'm not saying that you did this per se, but like if that is your energy of like it just has to be about the visa, then like people start to feel like they're being used. And you did not make
Exactly.
me feel like that. But I'm saying
Oh,
that's the
good.
danger of it, when people are so focused on that and they're just trying to make a relationship just to get that back, people will pick up
Exactly.
on that.
Yeah.
There was another student of mine who, when she first got to New York, she really wanted an agent. She did the same thing. Like, I have to get an agent or else I'm not going to succeed. And like was hounding the agencies. And like some of the agents said to me, like, this girl just got to New York. She needs to chill for a second. Like, it's going to happen. And so like she was actually doing more damage by being so hungry, where it's like, it just became more about like, I need an agent. Like, what can you do to get me an agent, versus like, I want to like just learn who these people are in New York, and I want to audition for them and get to know them, and like them to get to know me, and like, let's build a relationship. And so I think like, don't be afraid to be a human, going back to like what we
Yeah.
said earlier, like be a human being first, and then the rest will fall into line.
And the thing is, like, I get it, right? Like, I think it comes with age,
Yes.
honestly. Like,
Yes.
I think it's like when you're so green, it's like, and you come out of a conservatory program where it's
Yes.
literally like Broadway or nothing. They literally, put you in classes and it's like, this is what you can do, it's understandable. And it's like, also, it's the industry is so like, there's such a scarcity mindset that I'm not a fan of, like in the industry where like everyone's like, like, oh, if someone else gets this role, like, I'm never going to get the chance. Yeah, it's just like, it's a lot of like mindset things that I'm personally not a fan of. Yeah, but I think like also the pandemic has obviously been a curse, but also a blessing in like a more optimistic way, where like a lot of things are online now. There's
Yeah.
so many online communities that you can foster these relationships,
Yeah.
like in, and like, that are like either free or like at a really affordable price, and you can like get to meet people. There's so many like not Slack channels, oh my gosh, like Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, why did I say Slack? Yeah, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
these like forums and da da da, like yeah, and there's a lot of people who are creating, this kind of like resource. So
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you are.
Well, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think just not being afraid to reach out, like we were saying earlier. So do you feel like, because I agree that like social media is I mean, it was our like part of the theater industry, sure, before the pandemic, but I feel like during the pandemic, and I still think we're kind of in the pandemic, but like coming out of it, I feel like social media has become so much more because of TikTok and these other things, and people are really, they're not having the in-person experience anymore. So like from your point of view, do you feel like social media has made theater better, worse, the same?
Better in a sense, because I think a lot of important issues were raised throughout the
Yes.
pandemic
Yes.
that wouldn't have been raised at all if people didn't have time like on their
Yeah.
phones, and like just really being able to kind of like think and consume this kind of like information. So walking back into rooms, I feel so much more so much less robotic.
Mm-hmm.
Like walking into a room and like literally having a director tell me like, like take your time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, take my time. You mean like I'm not gonna rush in and out like how I
Yeah.
did before? Like I can have my time and space, just like reclaiming your power.
Yeah.
And you know, just what it means to be an artist, you know what I mean? Like just like knowing your worth, I guess. And it's like meeting everyone at this level. So we're all on the same page here.
Mm-hmm.
We're a team of collaborators. I'm an actor, you may be a director, but like I'm auditioning like with you, not
Right.
for you,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, let's see if, we can make some magic happen. And it's like,
Yes.
let's work together. I had this amazing audition, and I don't know if it's because I'm doing something else now that supplements like my, need of like just like financial stability and like just like fulfillment. I don't know if it's like not my eggs aren't in one basket anymore. But I literally went to a play audition for an off Broadway show, and like I would never audition for plays. Like what? But I did because I was like, whatever. I'm a good actor. I can do
Yeah.
this. A nice challenge. Whatever. I
Yeah.
freaking nailed it. Like I
Good.
nailed it so hard. Like the casting director like followed me afterwards. Put your handles in your actors access resume. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
do. It's like a really helpful way. So it's like they see your website and then your handles.
Mm-hmm.
um so it's just like tying
Yeah.
into like your
Yeah.
presence and stuff. um Honestly, I totally forgot what the point of my story was, but I just like I just
Somehow
like
how social media made the theater industry better, and like the meeting people where they are.
yeah, just like now is there kind of a mutual understanding of like,
Yeah.
hey, I recognize that the space that we might have created before the pandemic
Yeah.
wasn't mutually beneficial.
Yes.
It maybe was a
Yeah.
little pressurizing, and like, I see you now, like there's more diversity. Like I've never been so shooketh to walk into a room and see more than one Asian. That's not me,
Right.
truly. Like
Right.
that, those things matter, as like a
Yes.
person of color. Those things
Yes.
matter because you feel validated, you feel
Yep.
seen, you feel heard, you feel understood.
Yep.
And representation, like I feel like it's so like everyone says that representation matters, but like it really does. Like I'm getting chills. I'm getting chills
Yes.
right now
Yeah.
talking about it, because it's like you don't feel like you're reaching for something anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're just
Yes.
being. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
that was my point. Yeah.
it, especially for young people, it really matters. I think when you're growing up to see that you have this opportunity and um, that you can do this, and that's like what we're talking about, even with like being an international person, seeing that you can come here and work on a visa. Like just, you need to be able to see that these things are possible and know that they're possible. So that will help you have that courage. I agree with you with like the social issues. Well, but talking about first, like what you said about being an artist, of like you're auditioning with the director, and I think like that's something I've like, again, beating my drum about. Like this is a circle, it's not a ladder. Like people think of like the actor auditions for the choreographer, then the choreographer's auditioning for the producer, and the producer's auditioning for the writer. Like it's like all this like ladder, and it's like no, but like the writer can't do anything without the actors, the director can't do anything without the producer. Like we all need each other, and like these interviews are like a two-way audition. It's never or a two-way pitch meeting, or however you're booking the job. It's not just you looking up to this next level. It's like you have to feel them
Yeah.
out and make sure you feel comfortable working for them. So I do think like that's becoming more and more the case, which is awesome. But on the social side of it as well, I think like, I mean, even just like you yourself, I think it was a video or a blog post you did about people are always asking me why I speak English so well, even from Hong
Yeah.
Kong.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks for reading.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was like way early on in the pandemic, but it's like those kinds of things where like, sure, you could learn that in a textbook, you could hear that on the news, but when you hear friends talking about it or whatever, I mean, like I've been to Hong Kong, so it didn't surprise me at all that you speak English so well. But I know people ask that question, so it's like I loved hearing how you responded to that and talked about that. And I'm like, people need to see these kinds of things. Like they need to hear that like producers are telling, black actors to go sing at churches in Harlem because that's going to get more black audience. I mean, like those things, if that's happening, people need to know that that's happening, right? And we all need to be aware like of these shenanigans that are going on. That maybe if as a white person, I was never part of that conversation because I'm not a black person being asked to go sing at this church in Harlem, so I don't even know that that's happening. Now that I know that, it's like, okay, so I can keep my ear to the ground if like these kinds of things are going on, and like what can I do to like get involved or whatever. So I agree with you 100% that like the level of education and the level of like clarity and like bringing things to the surface has been great for our industry. And sadly, I don't think it's made as much of an impact as I want it to make. I mean, things are changing. Like we have to acknowledge, yes, things are moving, but it's also like it's 2022. Why are we still talking about these things? And why can't we just all get along? Like what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The other day, I think someone got canceled because they were not a Latina actor and she was in the Heights as Vanessa or something.
Yes, I
So
read
those
that.
things, like social media has really kind of like it's a catalyst, right? And it's like wake up, like let's let's not be so greedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like let's know what we can do and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And I think like
Mhm.
social media has been really good for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just need more stories of more different kinds of people. I mean, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's instead of having to like make sure we're casting certain ratios, which like then people feel like they're only getting cast because of their race or
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
gender or their sexuality. Like,
Tokenism.
that's also not good, right? So
Right.
we just need more stories of every kind of person, and then we don't need to worry about it because everyone can be working and like prolifically working in the industry in things that are quote unquote right for them or whatever. And then we don't need to have these these issues anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping that like these play festivals and things like really are going to explode a whole bunch of new kinds of work and stories for us. So
Yeah.
that'd be great. All right, well, thank you so much. Like this was really awesome getting to talk to you and hear this. I mean, some of these things I didn't even know myself that you were sharing today, so that's really cool. And I know people watching and listening are going to get a lot out of this. um how would people find more about you? I mean, obviously social media, but if they want to connect with you and learn more about you, where would they go?
Wait, I'm not as important as this next point I want to make. So
Okay.
I want to make it before I forget.
Okay.
So visas, let's go back to
Yeah.
visas because like it's something I actually kind of want to talk more about. I haven't gotten the chance to, but it's expensive. Okay,
Yes, it's
like it's
very expensive.
expensive. Uh I want to tell everyone that like be prepared to spend around $5,000 in lawyer fees and then like up to like 2,000 extra for application
Hmm.
immigration fees if you expedite it. If you don't, it's cheaper. But um there is there is also a resource where like they pick a couple of international artists and like completely sponsor the visa, and it's through the lawyers Dyer and Harris, and that's DYERHARRIS. And I think, okay, don't quote me on this, like I think it's called like International Theater Makers or something along the lines. But basically that is the firm that you can apply for it, and then if you get chosen, your visa can be for free. And that's something I wish
Oh,
I
wow.
knew. Um
That's awesome.
yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there
Oh,
before I
thank you.
forget because I remember reading that and I was like, well, wouldn't that be nice? And I think like because no one talks about it, like it's hard, to know these things, and it's like there's limited resources on the internet about it. And it's if you Google it, you're gonna go into the down a rabbit hole of people just saying like it's a mess and it's really hard to get it and it feels discouraging. So I want to let you know that there are ways around the
Yes.
financial stuff too. And there are a lot of like grants for artists now too.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
just
say this all the time too. Like you just Google like funds, grants, sponsorships, scholarships. Like there's so much out there that people just don't even. I mean, during the pandemic, I reclaimed like all the money I was lost from all the jobs that got canceled. I was able to get that back through grants and like not even having to produce any work for it. Like just there were people sponsoring like, oh, if you lost your job, show us what job you lost, what your salary is going to be, and we'll match that. I mean, it's like the money is out there. You just have to do a little research. And again, it's like this idea of like not being afraid to just ask and to create these opportunities. Like everything that you want to do is out there and there's a way to do it. So I think
Yeah.
that's like been the theme of this conversation.
Totally. And
Yeah.
also Rattlesticks. Oh my gosh, Rattlesticks theater company. They're in New
Yes.
York. They work with a lot of international artists. Like I've done so many like panels for them, like speaking. They also do a bunch of like Zoom like theater, and it's a community of international artists. So like Rattlesticks is a really good resource, especially
That's
like if
awesome.
you're not in America, maybe you want to, you know, like kind of like talk to someone or even like perform with them. Like that's like portfolio right there, like if you're
Right.
thinking in that sense, you know. So
Yes.
and but the thing is like the most important thing is like it's a community that cultivates and like helps immigrant artists. So
Right.
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to find me on social
Yeah.
media, my name is Viveca Chow. I always tell people there's only one in the world. My Instagram handle, it's hello, it's Viveca, it's hello, it's Viveca, and my TikTok is Viveca Chow, my full name. So yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all the information and for the
Of
tips
course.
and everything. It's awesome. And just like being inspirational yourself. I know it's going to help people who are listening. So thank you so much.
Right back at you, Jim.
Okay. I'll see you
Thanks,
later.
Jim.
Bye.
Bye.
See, I told you Vivica was going to give you so much awesome info. I can't wait to see how you put this all into action. So let me know in the comments below, or if you have questions or feedback or just want to keep the conversation going, put them in the comments. I personally respond to each one. Now, before we wrap up here, don't forget you can get my 3-part branding formula guide and worksheet for free on my website at jimcooney.me/branding. And I'll put that link in the description below. If you like this episode, be sure to hit the like button so more people can find out about it, and also subscribe and get notified so you don't miss any episodes. Remember, there is no one on the planet who's just like you. Be true to the gifts you have and who you are. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.